to Town Talk. I'm here with Margaret Beeman, professional horsewoman and author of The Better Deal and Training for Safety. Margaret, welcome. What is our topic today?
Well, thank you for having me back, Kathy. Topic today is going to be Introduction to the Herd.
Oh.
The introduction to the herd for both humans and horses. And I'd like to welcome Lois back.
Thank you.
And our guest today, which is the reason why we chose this topic, is
Welcome
Cynthia.
to the herd.
Is welcome to the herd. And the reason is because the way Cynthia came into the Authentic Horsemanship, unlike all of us, she didn't have any previous experience or exposure, or as Lois likes to say, no baggage.
No baggage.
No
No
baggage.
steamer trunks of baggage.
So, and she really wanted to learn about horses, so I put her into the program at the very beginning, and she's come up through the ranks. If we could show the slideshow of Cynthia, I'll tell you a little bit about, from my perspective, how Cynthia did come to start studying authentic horsemanship and what she's doing now.
Oh, well, Margaret, before we get there, I want to say hello to the horse I love, Calypso, in the background.
Oh, hi, Calypso.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. I'm sorry for the introduction.
So
but
that I
can't
wasn't sure
ignore
if what that is.
Calypso.
He's
Never.
with us right here.
Yeah. That's Calypso in the snow.
Running me over.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Margaret.
Okay. If we can put the slideshow up, I'll start telling people about how Cynthia came to know. There she is there with Annie. It's not about dominance and strength. It's about knowledge and mutual respect. Cynthia was my opportunity to prove the advantage of teaching the horse-human relationship to someone who had a clean slate, no baggage when it came to handling horses and learning to ride. Learning from this perspective teaches us what it takes to make the horse-human relationship safe and rewarding. It provides you with the information to make well-informed decisions on how involved you want to get with the horse and if these decisions are safe for both you and the horse. I explained to Cynthia when we started working together, horsemanship is a skill, not a sport, and that she'd be working with an animal who is approximately 10 times bigger and stronger than you and who's governed by instinct, not emotion. On my advice, Cynthia started by first attending the classes in the short course in horsemanship, where she learned about the horse from different perspective, the horse's perspective. And she met others with the same interest, a new herd member, if you will. From there, she attended the workshops as an auditor. That put her in a safe and close environment where she observed the interactions of horses and humans. And as she grew more confident through practicing her skills of observation, we began giving her the opportunities to practice her positioning and communication skills with an actual horse. That put her in a safer position to handle herself and practice emotional intelligence when working on one-on-one with the horse and handling and in groundwork. Lois at the time had a third halflinger, Anna, who was traditionally trained, whom I thought would be suitable for Cynthia to work with. We put them together and Cynthia began taking weekly lessons. Eventually she began working and riding Anna at the workshops, and the rest is pretty much history. These are shots of Cynthia trail riding in her early years, and she never really had consistent experience with horses. She just, whenever she did get a chance, she got out there and was able to go for a ride. Which brings about the difference between, there's physical abilities and there's also mental and emotional abilities that you have to have when you ride. So, and of course the way we ended up is Cynthia was part of the Snowgirl Girls clique. And this is only after, this is 2 years of riding. She felt confident enough to take the horse out in the snow and ride around with us and have fun.
That's the superstar Daisy.
So the interesting part about this story is that Cynthia, being we call her the newbie, came into Lois's barn, who Lois had her horses, had horses all her life. And now we're introducing Cynthia into a barn with several horses. with a woman who has had experience in boarding stables and whatnot, and having newbies come into the barn. So, Lois, how was that for you? How did it all come together?
It's been great, and one of the things that people should know is that it's a private barn, and I don't really let anybody in, and I have no boarders, so everything is mine, which
Right.
is the way that I like it.
Yes, I like
But-
it that way too.
But that being said, there's a code of conduct, and anybody that violates the code of conduct, which is about horsemanship, I really want no part of anywhere near my horses, because I work very hard to keep them, everybody calm, everybody happy. I'm the herd leader, and the fun thing about Cynthia is going to the classes. I was very happy to have her take Annie into the workshop and to come
so
into the
nice.
barn. And right now we ride a few times a week, but she had the technical skills that she was working on. She didn't have the baggage, but with Margaret, she started to get the right mindset of how to be around the horses and how to start partnering and communicating with them on a bi-directional basis.
Well, all of that was,
So-
she learned all of that so it didn't have to be explained to her the first time
Right.
she walked into your barn in a strange situation. And everybody knows every barn that you walk into, whether it is a private or a public stable, they all have their own rules. The thing about the authentic horsemanship is Lois's barn rules are much like the herd rules with the horse.
Exactly.
And the same thing when I introduced new students into the workshops or into the classes, we want to welcome them because everybody knows your heart rate goes up when you get around horses just because they're exciting to be around. And it's hard to be safe and to think the right way and make decisions, and when you're learning something new, or if you've learned your own way and you get back into it, it's hard to listen to how somebody else does it. So it was really important, I thought, for Cynthia to start in the classroom.
Well, everything obviously was so brand new to me. I mean, as you saw a couple of pictures, I mean, I can count on one hand probably the number of trail rides. I mean, if I went on vacation, we would seek out a place to ride horses, but, you know, as you call them, nose to tail rides.
Yes.
Right.
Nose
I
to
mean,
tail rides,
I
yeah.
love being with the horses, sitting on the horse, you know, the movement. But really, I could have been asleep. I could have been dead on the horse, and I would have still made it back
Be a
to
good movie.
the barn.
Yep.
But then after I retired and we were back up in the northwest corner, one of my ideas was I wanted to really learn more about horses. I mean, of course, I would have wanted to ride, but my initial interest was just to learn about horses and to be around horses. And it was just so fortunate. I saw Margaret's ad in the paper for her short course on horsemanship in the Shopper's Guide, and I called her and we had a great conversation. I said, I don't have a horse. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I was, I think, one of two of a group of 10 women who didn't have
Right.
their own horse. And I thought, well, maybe at some point I'll get a horse, but well, we'll see about that. But and it was really, I mean, I have to say, like coming into a new experience, you know, there's a lot of things about the horse world that you hear about and riders and how.
What a nightmare people are.
No, but you know, that wasn't my world.
Well, the other
And-
thing I also thought you mentioned, which was most important for me when people come to me that don't have their own horse, is not to force or push or rush
Right.
or encourage them. You have to get a horse, or you have to have your own horse.
Right.
You know, the group of ladies are very good. There's, thank God, Lois had an extra horse that
Right.
and the only reason I think you allowed that was because you knew that she was handling the horses according to.
Absolutely.
Well,
If
and
she wasn't handling them right, there would be no offers on the table.
but thank you. But it was a process. I mean, we sat
Yeah.
for 4 months, 3 months in the winter 2 years ago, and actually the group was so welcoming to me, and fun and knowledgeable. And you start to learn what this horsemanship. I never knew these things. I never knew about horses, the herd behavior, all that, and how important your role is in communicating with the horse. And then once the workshops moved outside, I continued to audit. And gradually, Lois would say, "Here, hold Annie for me, or hold this one," or I would learn how even to tack up a horse, put a saddle on. I mean, all those things, and then I don't know, it just happened.
When we you had another horse that you were riding, so I want to bring 2 horses to the workshop because, like, what the heck. And that's where it started.
And they were safe enough, and they were the thing of it is, what people with the horsemanship, if you handle a horse correctly, it makes a big difference. You can take a horse that isn't handled with the authentic horsemanship and handle him and be okay. But once you handle a horse, what the horsemanship does is it teaches the horse to look to the human for leadership, and bringing someone in who has no clue how to offer leadership to a horse. But the fact that Cynthia put the time in, there's 8 hours worth of classrooms, and then you start auditing workshops if you don't have a horse, or if you do have a horse but you're still not sure. So you have a lot of time to look and to see horse-human relationships and to see how it all comes together and why it works.
Exactly.
Now, one of the interesting things is Annie is my oldest horse. She'll turn 17. But I had really just practiced horsemanship and brought only Raya and Cece to the clinics and to the workshops. And Anna was just but she was my trail horse. We go out together.
Well, she was traditionally trained.
She was traditionally trained, so she didn't really know horsemanship either. So I was bringing in effect, it was 2 newbies together, which is...
We were learning
together. You were learning together.
Right, but by following the herd structure.
Exactly.
And handling the horse according to his culture and his language. That's what brings it together and makes it safe for so many people, is you're doing things according to the horse herd rules so that the horses seem settled. You don't get as many horses spooking or getting upset or misbehaving because they actually understand what their job is in the herd. And then people begin to get that, and they're more willing to step up to the plate and offer the horse leadership because they see the change in the horses and how much safer they are to be around.
Now, physically, Annie is a much happier horse.
Yes.
When Cynthia's coming to ride her 3 times a week.
Yeah.
She's physically happier.
Well, and I want to say too, I mean, you say to ride her, and I love riding her, but I also recognize the value and just love the time in the ring doing the ground.
It's fun.
The groundwork.
Yeah.
And every time, if it's with Margaret or Lois, I kind of do this thing right in the beginning just to reestablish, okay, we're working together. And it's very simple to start walking, stop, have her stop, a few feet behind me, not on my shoulder. Right. And then again, and we'll walk around a couple of times, and I love that period because we just reconnect again. And
well, now Cynthia, I want to ask you, was this your first experience with a horse, or had you been, because the reason I ask is that for me, I had, in my 30s, I owned 2 horses, and I was into horses all my life, and of course read all the typical books that you do with horses, and so you weren't tainted yet by all the other ways. You started anew. What I found interesting really was that I had not learned, even with all my reading and all my years of even raising a yearling to saddle myself, I did, by all the old rules, really, that you and the horse are the herd, and you're the herd leader. This is a concept that I wanted our listeners to understand, that when we talk about the herd rules, we talk about when you have to establish yourself as the herd leader. And I've got Margaret here, so if she hasn't taught me well, she'll correct me. But and by doing that, that is how you're in control. So I think it's interesting that this was new for you.
Oh,
See,
it
I
was,
already had
totally.
my mind with other things, but go ahead.
Oh no, totally. I mean, as I said, we would go on trail rides, but like really half
So
a
you
dozen
never had
times.
the same horse twice?
No, never had the same, and never, when you go on a trail ride, they don't really tell you anything. They say, hold on.
Well, you don't have to know.
Don't fall off.
Don't fall off.
As long as they're with the herd, they're fine.
Right, exactly.
Well, the
And-
difference between the traditional training and the authentic horsemanship, traditional training, it's the end product, produces a submissive student. The horse submits to what you want. There are cases where they don't submit, that they do bring them along slowly and nicely with traditional training. But the biggest difference to me is how I felt, because I grew up with traditional training and then was hurt badly, and then when I got back into it, got into the authentic horsemanship. The biggest difference for me is how I feel inside when I'm with a horse now.
Yes.
I feel much safer, I feel much calmer, and I have much more control. I don't get nervous or upset like I used to. As a horse trainer, taking money from people to train their horses, there were times when my stomach was in knots because of what I'm supposed to accomplish with this animal. That doesn't happen anymore. And the reason it doesn't happen is because I understand the horse better. I took the time and I studied the horsemanship, and now I understand more what I'm doing with the horse in our relationship, the horse-human relationship, what I can offer the horse, what I can't offer the horse, what I can do to really make things go south, and what I can do to keep things calm.
Let me interject one thing, because I'll have to get this out of my system.
Yeah, okay.
Because
I'll argue.
Because I want my audience to know that because of Margaret, I hadn't ridden for many years. I am 72 years old. I don't mind anyone knowing this. Just a day ago, I got on Calypso, that beautiful white horse you saw in the photo. Oh, he's up there. I got on Calypso bareback, without a bit or bridle, nothing but his halter on and one rein. Now, granted, I had a person with me on the ground, Dorothy.
A spotter.
Yes, okay.
That's good.
But
That's
I had the
safety.
courage to do that.
Right.
And we walked only a little bit. But for my age,
That's
after
huge.
all these years of
Yeah.
not riding since I was in my 40s, I had the courage to do that because I did my work from the ground. I followed Margaret's method. Calypso, I understands me, I understand him, and we know what to expect, and that gave me the courage to do that.
And the
Thank you.
biggest reason that happened is because you simply took the time. And because
Right.
you took the time to learn, you learned how important it is to slow down
Slow down.
when you're around the horse,
That's right.
not to go too fast. And a horse can't multitask. He just can't
Right.
multitask that like we do. He can't go as fast as we do. And it's hard to introduce, it's hard to change, it's hard for horse people to change, it's hard for any of us at our age to change. But if you just look at it simply as this looks like a safe way of going about things, and it looks like Cynthia recognized right from the get-go, all these people are having lots of fun with their horse, and the horses are enjoying it too, and I think I want to be part of this. Not, I wonder what's going on, or if you see one of us working a horse through something, if you've studied the horsemanship, you understand why that is all happening. It's not a chain over the nose.
Right.
Yeah, it's I don't allow chains in my barn. If people come in with a horse to board or a horse to train and they have a chain, I ask them to please take it off and put it in their car. It's not allowed on the property, because you don't need a chain to control the horse, no matter the behavioral problem. You do not need a chain to do it.
And a lot of people use the chains for the getting into the trailer too,
Yeah.
which, that's where the trouble starts too.
It starts,
it's
and they don't understand in situations like that the horse can't reason things out. They can only associate. And if you inflict pain on them when their mind is on something, in their little mind, they think that whatever they're thinking of at the time is what is causing them pain. That's why people get in a lot of trouble with the horses. But I'm very happy about how far Cynthia has come, and she
And
mentioned.
I'm still learning, and I appreciate, Margaret, you're very direct in a supportive way. She'll say, look at the feet, not, if I'm backing up Annie or something, like I still need the reminders, but I think that's what's helping me to partner with Annie, and that's what.
Well, Margaret and I have talked about this. One of the things that we're doing that's different is we're teaching you to succeed rather than to fail.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of traditional training is great. It doesn't matter if the trainer can ride the horse and jump the fences and do all this.
right.
Yeah, well,
but when
it's-
they hand the horse
it's
to
not
you, it's effectively teaching you to fail. But every step of the way, we're teaching Cindy to succeed.
Right, because I treat all of the students the same way I treat all of the horses, as individuals.
Right.
And
You do.
Kathy, maybe you learn a little bit differently than Lois. Maybe you learn visually. Maybe Lois learns by listening.
Yeah.
You know,
No
some
way.
people have to see it. Some people don't. You know, and everybody has their own piece that is harder for them to understand
That's
than
right.
others.
Why don't you speak for a minute about when we did the snow ponies that you saw on the
Oh, yeah.
the video? Now, what Cindy learned
Afterwards,
afterwards. So
yes.
describe the
Okay.
whole sort of event and what you learned after.
Well, I'll say this much up front. The other piece to all of this are the safety measures and always being aware of your surroundings and what to do, and just being safe, keeping yourself safe, keeping the horse safe. So this was Lois's dream, to have her 3 horses galloping in the snow, and I was like just flattered that I could be or would be asked to be part of that.
As the newbie.
As
Yeah.
the newbie, the horseless
competent.
newbie, and everything just worked out. The snow had fallen. It was a beautiful day, and we go out there, and Margaret's daughter was filming us, and Margaret was more or less, directing how we should go. And every once in a while, we would reconfigure, and she would say, "Okay, Cynthia, you go first." I'm like, "Oh, okay, she wants me to go first," so I'd trot up, and
You really didn't know why, though,
and I
did you?
didn't know why, because
You just thought you were the prettiest.
she was being kind, letting me be first, but it was all again around being safe, and if the other horses had gone first and maybe got a little, not rambunctious, but more spirited,
Right.
They'd
they didn't
follow
want
through, yeah.
Right.
Annie following suit. So I was always either between them or first one, so that
Right. So
Which
Annie
is how
didn't
we
feel
got
like
into to Raya bucking, because Cynthia went first.
Yes.
I followed, and I started doing
And
a little
then-
canter. And then Raya said, "Oh no, I'm going to catch up." And that's when Margaret got into the bucking situation.
And it's a good thing it was
Right.
Margaret on
Right.
that horse.
Yes,
But we
exactly.
both knew bad things could happen.
Right.
But we didn't want to introduce
But we
Cynthia
didn't tell her.
to the snow girls riding in the snow. Well, she might buck, and she might do this, and she might
yeah.
do
So
that.
I'm like, okay, oh, you want me to go first? Okay, let me see
Well,
if I
quite
can.
honestly, Cynthia, I was very impressed with you in that film.
She did great.
I'm saying to myself, there's no way I would have been in that field with those horses.
Oh.
If my horse started a canter, which I'm not up to yet, I would be hysterical.
Right.
Oh no, we're going too fast.
It was well controlled and so much fun. I mean, that's the other thing too. I mean, we have a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
mean, I always have fun with you. I always have fun riding with you, and when we can do it all
Well,
three of us.
if it's not fun, it really isn't worth doing. I mean, I put
exactly.
safety first. Fun is second.
Well, here's a little safety story. The first time I took Cynthia to Weathersfield, they happened to have a centaur, the statue of the half man and half horse.
yeah.
And we're coming around the centaur, and I went to take a picture of her, and I realized that she had about 2 inches of air in between the girth and the horse.
Oh no.
And I made her stop. She said, "Oh, it's okay." I said, "No, it's not okay. We're going to go right up a big hill
right.
after this, and you're going to come come
Oh, good
come
thing
off.
you noticed it. That's right.
Right, if I had been by myself.
And she would have just slid off the horse. I mean,
Yeah.
but we Margaret and I look out for you.
I know you do.
Yeah, and you have to. And that's the way I set it up with all of the students. All of the students know that I take a herd perspective on things. So that when a
Right.
new person, not just a new horse, but when a new person comes into the herd, we help that person be where they need to be safe. You know, if the person is capable of doing some things, they're allowed up the ladder a little bit. But when we start doing things where maybe they're not that sure about it, we work them back down again so that everything can keep moving and everything can keep going, and then you can have a positive learning experience.
And we learn from each other. I mean,
Right.
there have been other riders who have had difficulties in the workshops for one reason or
Right.
the other, but we all get to observe how Margaret helps to correct the situation.
And even just the mounting. When
Just
I
the
saw
mounting.
you
Yeah,
struggling,
that was-
and then you were going to get on from the ground, I said, no, talk to
No.
Margaret.
Yeah.
And work it through.
Lois, I'm glad you brought that up because I was so proud of myself. I was alone with Calypso when I got on bareback. Dorothy was off doing something with one of her other horses, the Mustang, and I got on the first step and I did exactly
Right.
what you said, and he moved up exactly right, and I stood there on that step, and he didn't move
Right.
even an ear. He
Right.
stood
great.
there, and he. So
And
that-
he
it
was
wa-
happy to have you ride him.
Yeah, he told me too.
They do. He's very happy.
Well, he likes me because I'm really good to him. See, well, I don't know if he likes me or not, but you know,
It's
but
a positive experience.
But I've had a bad experience, and Margaret's heard this, and I'll share with my wife. At 45, I fell off in a ring at the canter. It was because my saddle was not right.
Oh, see?
Okay,
Ugh.
and it was loose, and it worked as a catapult.
Yep.
I didn't have the strong seat that a lot of riders have, and off I went. And honestly, I lay on the ground for a long time before I tried to move my legs. And I made the decision I was either going to get back up on a real quiet horse or I wasn't going to do it anymore, and I stopped. It wasn't until recently that I started again. Whether I ever canter again, I'm not sure. But I'm taking it.
But it doesn't matter.
I'm taking it. I know I'll trot. I did trot a little bit on Calypso. He's got a big,
Right.
you know, but I think I'll be able to,
But you also realized trotting and cantering isn't really the most important thing
Right.
about the riding. It's not what gives you the joy. What gives you the joy is being with the horse and being in control of the horse and being able to do things with the horse and feel safe and have fun.
you hit it on the button.
Right.
After I got off Calypso on bareback, I was so my husband was happy. I came home thrilled. I felt like I accomplished something
Right.
so great.
Right.
I felt so good about myself. Mm-hmm. The last,
Yeah.
I tell you, it was unbelievable. You're right. That is the pleasure you get.
Right. And that's what it takes time and it takes application. And pretty soon the fear goes away because you learn how not to make a move that's going to put you in a situation where you should be fearful.
Yes.
You know, it's one of my favorite expressions I say over and over again is, don't go there. Don't even go there. This animal is 10 times bigger and stronger than you.
Exactly.
You know, the personal space thing. Why get in a position where that horse can learn very easily and then not only learn that he's bigger and stronger than you, but learn that it's acceptable to push you over or step on your foot.
Well, I was reminded that day that next time I'm in that ring to remember that there is a little corner of the ring that Calypso, there's some little animal living in there, and Calypso knows it. And fortunately, the way he jumped, the way he spooks a little bit, I've been on him when he does that. And Dorothy explained to me, if you move with him, you'll be all right. Don't just let him, and that works. But
because you're riding to the feet, because that's where he's starting his spook.
Right. Right.
And you can sense it before he does it, and you're not taken by surprise.
But with Cynthia here, I'm very impressed how far you've gotten. Here I have a whole years of being with horses and things, and still, and you look how far you've come. That's wonderful.
Well, it's the introduction. If you introduce the whole thing properly, and if the student has the patience and the dedication to want to learn about the horse rather than, and I say to people, if you just want to ride, then the horsemanship isn't for you, because you're going to be doing a lot more with your horse than just riding. But when you do ride, you're going to have so much more knowledge and ability to keep yourself and the horse safe.
And one of the things we've talked about before is developing a muscle memory through horsemanship training to know that when something does happen, and it always happens, and it's not necessarily through any fault of your own. The example that I asked Cynthia to talk about is the day you and I were at, and Annie was going up, scooted up.
Right.
So what happened that day?
And we had, practice safety measures before when a horse gets spooked, but we were going up a hill, and I think she kind of tripped on a branch that had fallen down, and she spooked, and she started
cantering up the hill.
And what I did was I just kind of hunkered down a bit. I sat in the seat until she calmed down, and then I was able to
and
do
you knew to pull her around.
Yeah, so there was the
she
instant.
And all of that, you see, the difference
I'm
is
sorry.
all of that was practiced
Exactly.
beforehand.
Exactly.
Otherwise, she wouldn't have known what to do when a horse scoots
So
off
she
like
didn't
that.
do the emergency stop in
yeah,
the
she-
middle
yeah.
of it. She did it as she
Well,
comes.
she kind of went up, and then I waited till we were.
What we just talked about, Kathy, is she got herself settled in the saddle
Right.
before she tried to help her horse. She didn't just
Right.
That's
was
what I needed
very
to know.
right.
controlled.
And it comes from how many times did you disengage that horse's hindquarters before you went on that trail
Exactly.
ride? Several hundred.
Right.
So it was an automatic move. It's
Kind
training.
of a settling in, not like panicking. I mean, maybe I should have panicked, but
No,
just
don't
kind
panic.
of. and Lois too. Later, she says, and you notice, she stopped.
Stopped.
Yeah.
Cece. I mean, she just stayed put because
She didn't
she didn't
start.
want to
then
add
they
to.
think-
You don't start screaming and,
Right.
and hollering and make it worse than
Right.
it
monsters
was.
are
and then
coming.
The horse gets more like, oh, what's the
Well, if
problem?
she's upset and she's the herd leader,
Right.
I have a reason to
Exactly.
be.
That's
I was
exactly
right.
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
I was
right.
right.
Okay, well let's get on to what this introduction to the herd. If we can show this, I'm going to have them put a photo up, and it's a photo of a young Mustang that was introduced to the herd this day at the workshop. And the other horse that would be on the right-hand side would be my saddle horse, Ernie. And I want you to take a good look at this. I'm going to give you a few seconds to look, and then I'm going to ask you some questions.
So Ernie is
Ernie's on the right and Jonah's on the left. Do you recognize self-preservation in this photo? What about pecking order? Do you see laziness? What about reproduction? 3 out of those 4 things you should see in this photo. And what is it about the photo that tells you that? Now, do you recognize acknowledgement? What about respect? Do you see move when I say move, or just wait a minute? And do you see look to me for direction? You should see all 4 of those in that photo. You can tell by the positioning of the horses. You could tell by their posture.
And the ears, I was thinking.
Right.
The ears.
And those are the kind of things that I teach people to look for, not only in the horses, but in the students themselves. And that's why we're so willing to share with each other. Look at the way the horse on the left is standing. That's laziness.
Yes, that's lazy.
Can you see, the youngsters with their breeches down around, That's exactly what he's doing. You can see the acknowledgement. You can see the respect, because although they're very close, they're both standing on their own. They're not interfering with each other's space. They're not pushing or leaning on each other. They're standing very correctly there. Move when I say move, or wait. This is what this horse is saying. And I captioned this photo when I first put it up there. Is just relax. She'll tell you when it's time to move. You see, he's helping that young Mustang out. The young Mustang is a little bit, he's got a little bit, you can tell just by his stance and his expression, that he might not be the best to listen, but he is listening to that other horse. And that's how you ticked it. And he didn't have to do any big move. He recognized that the horse was a little nervous. It was a new situation. And he just turned and said, chill, it's okay. We'll let you know when it's time to do something.
And a little bit like taking a bit of a posture that's like, I've got this, I'm in control.
I got your back.
Yeah.
I got your back. So those are a lot of the things when I... this is the first show since we've gone through the whole outline and everything. This is the first show that we've done where we're just going to start talking about things like this, because lots of times you can learn a lot just by sharing an experience. You can relate it back to what happened to you with your horse.
Right.
And you can, and what I try to do is help people look at the whole situation from the horse's perspective, not our perspective, the horse's perspective. That way there, when you are with a bunch of horses or with people and horses, you can be much safer. Lots of times the first thing that comes to mind, your first natural instinct when something happens with the horse, is the wrong thing to do.
And that's what I think we were trained to do.
Yes.
Traditional training is about learning the wrong thing to do with
And
the
you
horse.
react, you don't respond.
Correct.
That's right.
And when you react, you throw gasoline on the fire. And the situation just gets worse. The story that Lois told about the mounting last week, where the kids started to scream, and they said, how many times have I been in this situation, or at my place even, a horse will get loose and everybody's, the horse, and they're running. Shut up and stop.
Calm down.
Just let it go. And the horse will usually put the head up in the air and gallop out, but there's other horses around in the herd, and if you don't give it anything more to be frightened of or try to figure off, it'll find its way back around. And it's just teaching people to learn how to take that lead around horses and keep it calm and not turn it into something it doesn't need to be.
Can I say something? When we started bringing Annie, or you did, to the workshop, she was a little nervous because...
Very. Very.
She was nervous. New place, new group of horses. So she showed some of her
anxiety.
And one of the most, or there's so many, but another very helpful lesson that you taught me was that when she was doing things that seemed anxiety driven, rather than trying to make her stop or correct it, was to really redirect the energy, so that we would we would walk off, turn,
direct the movement. And that's the biggest difference between, the horsemanship and traditional training. Is that right there. Is you don't correct. You don't punish, you don't discipline, you don't correct. What you do is you redirect or direct the movement. So when the horse is anxious and nervous, and one of the problems that Cynthia had, one of the habits that Annie had, which Lois said before, is she would see something and she'd run over top of you to get away from it. And through practicing with Cynthia the personal boundaries and how to get her to back up and keep her space, she was much easier to handle. And now she's a lot better. Taking her to a new place for a trail ride or bringing her to the workshops, Annie would get anxious and she would just,
And she would bolt.
Right.
Like everybody that rides it, you go to a place and she'd break away.
And the first thing people want to do when a horse throws its head up and whinnies and they want to hold on to it. They want to hold it still. They want to calm it down. They want you, please stand still. It's okay. They start petting, and the horse is like this, and they're getting rewarded.
Not okay.
They're getting rewarded for being that way.
It's conquer versus partner.
So Margaret, I'm going along, and I start to feel like my horse is looking at something, and we're getting that.
Here we go. Comes up, and he gets
and he's walking a little slower. My instinct would be, after being riding my instinct would be to direct him in another direction, to take his mind off by giving him a cue take a right-hand turn
Right.
instead. Is that evading the
No.
Other people
No,
would try
when
to push
you're
the
t-
horse through it.
They-
I would.
Right.
Is that?
The thing of it is if you understand the equine mind, they can think of one thing at a time. And if you're riding and they see something, you don't want them to keep their mind on that because they're unsure, and that's why they slow down. So you simply give a half halt, do whatever you have to do to say hello to the horse, that soft feel, and have the horse say what. You might have to do it 3 or 4 times to get through that corner where there's something in the corner. But what happens is sort of like the horse goes, and you say hello, and they say what, and he goes, and you say hello, and he says what, and the horse looks, and you say hello, and that's all that happens. Rather than to take that, when the horse looks up, you take a hold of the reins, and you begin to panic. What is he going to do? I wonder if he's going to spook. You've immediately just dropped him like a hot potato, and you're no longer his leader. You're adding to his anxiety.
And when you say a soft feel for our audience, that's just a little closing your hands on the rein.
However much or however little it takes, every
hold.
moment
But that
is
takes
different.
a lot
Right.
to
And what
learn.
it's a recognition from the horse when you pick that up. It might just be an ear at first, but usually what happens is a horse will soften in their pole and come into like a posture, or some people call it being on the muscle, some people call it being in the bridle. But what it is that horse coming to you. As you reach for your horse reaches for you and says, "What would you like?"
Is that like a half halt too?
Yeah, It's the amount of pressure that you apply to get that, and how you get it. It might be a touch on the neck. It might be grabbing a little bit of mane. It might be closing your hand on the rein. It might be just bumping him a little bit with your legs, saying, "It's okay, buddy. You're with me. You look to me for direction. I'll show you it's okay. I'll let you know if we need to run to get away from that." You know.
One of the stories I was writing, just me and Cece, the other week, and I have a big hill on the side of my house, and we went up the hill, and she saw something, and we have some bear issues, so I said, "All right, well, let's find out what it is," and she just panicked, and then what happened was a whole flock of 20 turkeys went by, you know, and they're all and she looked at it. I said, "Oh, okay, there it is. We're okay." Patted her, soft
But
feel,
she
and
stayed
off
with
we go.
Lois rather
She
than
didn't
running.
spin, because the spinning is really a painful experience at our age when you're going in that direction, the horse is going the
I
other
haven't
direction.
experienced that. I don't.
Well, they do, but they'll spin and they'll try to leave. But I said, "Oh, we're good," and we kept walking, and it was fine.
Yeah.
There was no panic. There was no nothing. I was the herd leader.
And
It's
you
okay.
stayed calm.
I
I mean,
stayed
that
calm.
was-
Let's find out what it is, because something is there. You know, and I've come off with turkeys, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's not as funny when it happens to you, but you know, I mean, but it's just you get the muscle memory for everything that Margaret has taught you. Stay calm.
Yeah.
Just let's say, be with me, and then keep moving.
You know, in this day and age, it's everything that we do seems to be instant satisfaction. You can
Yes.
hit a button and
Right.
get the show you want to watch, or you can do something on your phone and get an answer to a question, and that's where it's really difficult for the horse these days to get along with humans, because we have a certain rhythm in our society, or human civilization has a certain rhythm or way that they communicate, and the horse's way is the way of nature. It goes by the laws of nature, and it's a lot different rhythm. And you can train a horse, you can work with a horse and get them really good with what you do, but you really can't get their mind to work like your mind. They can't multitask. They can't think the way you think and as fast as you think. And I'm sorry, but what's important to you isn't really important to the horse. We have to start thinking about what's important to the horse when we're with the horse. For the time that we're with the horse, if we want to be safe and we want it to be humane for the horse, we have to take the time to learn. And that's the whole thing with authentic horsemanship. It's not a free ride. It's not a riding lesson. It's a way of life. What you learn when you study authentic horsemanship are things that you apply to other aspects of your life also. And it's basically learning how to slow down and go more with the laws of nature than with human civilization. Instead of trying to bring the horse into human civilization, which is only going to confuse him and make it so that you have to get him to submit or force him to do something.
Now,
let me stop for a minute. I can't believe our time is flying.
Wow.
I see we have 10 minutes,
Okay.
Which is an eternity, as I always say on
Not with
TV,
this group.
But not with this group. But I didn't mean to. But go ahead, Lois.
Well, one of the things that you'll see when you come visit me at my farm is I take the opportunity with Cynthia to use Daisy the donkey, who was the little one that was in the
cute.
Yeah.
serpents, because she may look horse-ish because she's got 4 legs, but she's a whole different species. And we observe and contrast what's the horse facts, as Margaret calls them, versus what's a donkey. What happens when you let each of the horses out of the barn, and then versus when you let Daisy out. And it becomes a great talking point to follow up on a Margaret lesson about
Right.
horse facts, herd facts, what's an animal of prey, who's more a predator. And you can literally see it. And we laugh about it because Daisy is so expressive, and when she starts braying it, she's pint-sized, but she
stands up
packs
for
a wall.
herself. Oh.
Absolutely. But it's a great way to prove visually what Margaret teaches.
Yeah.
So, Margaret, please continue in what you want to continue, but I want to make sure that we get your information out to everyone. And I know I'm looking forward to attending your workshop on Sunday in Oxford, and so I'll be there. But
Well, I did have a question. It was actually a question that I didn't hear the question correctly. It was at one of my last classes.
Okay.
And the woman wanted to know, she said, you talk about redirection. How do you redirect a horse when they're rearing up or bucking, whether you're on the ground with them or in the saddle? How do you do that? And you do that through learning your 5 parts of the circle on the
Right.
ground and under saddle. You learn how to move a horse's foot as it takes flight is when you put the pressure on the foot to move it. And it's not something, I have people that will ask questions of me. It's like, I can't answer your question and have you go home and say, oh, we can fix it just like that. It takes a while to learn how to do that. But basically what you do is, the first thing you do is teach the horse before any of that happens, or if you happen to the first time with the horse and the horse begins to act up, is that you have a boundary. You have an area that's yours, and that horse is not allowed past that boundary. I've had horses rearing up as close as Lois to me, and I haven't done a thing because they're not breaking the rules, they're not interfering with me, but they just had to do that to figure out what it was I wanted them to do, and it's a direction they can go in trying to figure it out. That's the way I look at a horse rearing up or running backwards, is they're trying to figure out what direction I want them to go in, rather than to turn it into, oh, I've got a crazy horse on my hand that's going to kill me.
The biggest life lesson I've had, though, is Raya has rears on occasion, and if you watch the feet, and Margaret says it every single time, watch the feet, the panic is virtually eliminated.
Yeah, it gets rid of a lot of the emotion.
And then you can redirect.
Rather than to look up. I mean, look at this horse galloping behind us, you know, it's like it's a big, powerful thing. You look up like this, and the horse immediately, because he's governed by instinct, he senses you're off balance and you're taken by surprise. That's not a leadership position. That's not a body language that a leader presents. And then if the voice comes with it, that's certainly not something the horse is going to want to look to follow.
Who does that? We don't do that.
So we are down to 5 minutes, and so if my horse is spooking, I watch his feet from the saddle.
No, you feel his feet. You feel his feet. You
from
watch his
From
feet
the
when
saddle,
you're on
and
the
you should
ground.
know enough about his feet by the time you get
the
up
time
there
I'm
to
up
know
there
how
with
to,
that.
you know, your rope halter and your rope is your rein, your inside rein.
So is there something you would like to wrap up with, Margaret? We have 5 minutes, so...
Well, nothing other than and then thanking everybody for coming back, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people who are interested in horses and do have questions and want to learn more. This show is it's really great.
Thank you, Margaret, and I remind everybody, as long as we're on that subject, that the show is going to be on weekly, every Monday nights at 7:30. It's a wonderful show. Anyone interested in horses is going to enjoy it. I hope you enjoy watching it and listening to us all talk about that. And we hope to do our shows are going to be getting better and better. There'll be a better deal. and we're having a lot of fun doing this. I'm thrilled that I'm doing this show with you, Margaret.
You know, and I welcome, we have probably 10 weeks worth of topics lined up, but I welcome if there are any questions or anybody wants us to speak about something specifically from an authentic horsemanship standpoint. We're more than willing to talk about it.
Well, and tell them how they can get in touch with you.
I don't know if they have something to put up on
We
this.
have 2 workshops going now, right?
Yeah, we have some workshops going in Oxford.
Oh, there it is.
Margaret
Beeman.
That's my website.
Yeah.
If you go to my website, the phone number is there, the email is there. You can either email me or text me, and I'm pretty good about getting back to people. And then, of course, you can see the show on YouTube and also on Facebook.
That's right.
So if you don't get, there are some people that aren't in the listening area, you can go to YouTube and look it up on there.
And don't forget Comcast 10 in the Valley Towns on Monday night, 7:30. Well, I see I have 1 minute left, which gives me the opportunity to say goodbye to everyone. So are we ready? Well, I'll do that right now. I'm going to say to everybody, as I usually do, but I'm putting a little thing on it here, have a good evening and a better deal tomorrow. And that's in reference to Margaret's book, The Better Deal. Take care all, and hope you watch on Mondays at 7:30, Comcast 10.